My name is Alexandra Kulikova. I manage the work with multi-stakeholders in Europe and Asia, and I'm very happy to see so many of you here, even after the lunch break. I think that my presentation will follow very logically what was mentioned before, DNS coding. My topic is identification, and I will be talking about the KSK change, which is one of the priority issues, and I would like to see the show of hands. Those of you who are familiar with the issue, okay, we understand that this is not a subject of common knowledge just yet, and we would like to raise your awareness of this issue, particularly among the developers of software and technical experts. Let me start by presenting the background information. Why is it important? The KSK change, the key for assigning root zone keys, is an important thing for DNSSEC. That is why it is important to raise awareness of this change within the next 18 months while this project is being launched. It is important to mention what exactly it is, what it is needed for, and point out the main milestones, particularly for those who will be directly affected by this change, and also raise awareness about the DNSSEC protocol and why it is useful. With the standard functioning of DNS protocol, we receive the addressed resources after we send a request. When we use DNSSEC, we also receive a signature. As many of you know, DNSSEC functions on the basis of digital signature with 8,000 cryptography, that is a public and a private key, which in fact allows us to receive authentic data when we do the validation. We need to make sure that the signature is correct, that the key used to create it is also correct, and also to ensure that the response we received from DNS matches the initial request, that the response is still valid, that it is updated, and that it is not repeated. Why is this important? Dmitry has already mentioned this. The initial DNS protocols were created many years ago without factoring in the security aspects. Therefore, they are vulnerable. This protocol is vulnerable to the point that with changed DNS replies, the routing of the traffic may be unfavorably affected. When we do the validation in DNSSEC, it is also useful to use mail service, so we are sure who we are talking to, and so we can fulfill the function of the verification center. We use two types of keys in DNSSEC. That is case key and the KSK for the key zone, for the data of the key zone. At each stage of validation, we verify the content, we validate the signature as well as the key used to make this signature. All together, if we look at the DNS hierarchy, we establish the so-called trust chain. When we verify the keys of the base zone with the related zone, we can be sure about the data. This protocol has not been implemented everywhere just yet, but quite widely. Talking about the KSK change, it is important to note that this chain of trust starts with the root KSK, the element that can establish the validity of that one particular key. How can you trust this initial point? You have to trust this initial point, or the software or the developer of a particular software, or independently verify the entire trust chain. Some history. DNSSEC started to be used in 2010. The agreement was signed in 2010. It is controlled by ICANN and VeriSign. Initially, there were 3 partners doing it together. ICANN used to be the IANA functions operator, was responsible for the KSK, whereas Verizon was actually fulfilling this work, and this was done under the agreement with the NTIA, National Telecommunications Agency of the United States. As is known, the contract with NTIA expired. That happened on September 30th this year. So this architecture does not exist any longer, and now there are just 2 partners instead of 3. That is ICANN and Verizon. ICANN is responsible for KSK. Verizon is responsible primarily for the assignment of KSK zones, and obviously these activities are coordinated. The current KSK was generated in 2010. It is stored in programmatic modules. That is that part of it that is concealed at protected data centers at 2 locations, on the U.S. East Coast and on the U.S. West Coast. As I said before, the KSK is the final and the initial point of the trust chain. To start using it, to start trusting it, you can either trust the software that you are using, or you can go to the IANA site and place your trust with the IANA, where it is protected by XML. The KSK change is happening for the first time according to the agreement signed a few years ago. This change need to take place every 5 years or as often as necessary. No necessity has arisen recently, and there is some cryptographic prevention involved, and it is useful to have, so to speak, a plan B that can be used in case of emergencies without any major disruptions. A question is asked whether we can test the KSK change. Probably not, because we're talking about the root zone, and too much would depend on success or lack of success for a similar exercise, so we cannot do this exercise risk-free. This is a good idea to do this change because obviously no key should exist forever. If we explain the importance of this issue for the customer, for the end user, if the KSK change fails, if the network operator fails to tune in into this trust chain, the resources will become unavailable for the customer. In plain words, that means that the internet has stopped working. What do we have here? The project for KSK change will take approximately 18 months, including the preparatory stage while the plan was being developed, which involved ICANN people, Verizon people, and the technical community at large. So you might say that this work truly was based on a multi-stakeholder model. The new key was generated at the ZSK ceremony in October this year, and it will be repeated in January this year at the next event. And if everything goes as planned, in October next year, the key will be assigning the root zone to ensure that the operation is not interrupted. There will be an automated scheme 5011, either do it manually. The plan of the KSK change includes documents that became available as of July this year. Also, please note that, as you can see here, there is a thing called rollover backup plan. Backout does not mean abandoning the project. That means suspending it temporarily to ensure success. I will explain in more detail which stages of the project we have in mind here. Two ceremonies, as I explained. One of them generates the key. That has already happened. The other would be the implementation stage, plus two more important stages. In July 2017, it will first appear in the root zone. In October, it will start signing up the key zone, and then in summer next year, the key will be revoked. Where is the potential problem? Of course, we cannot foresee all potential problems because this is unprecedented work and we have no experience here. We can only talk about theoretical scenario. One scenario would be an increase of DNS responses. Also, that with IPv6 protocol, experts say that theoretically nothing unnatural would be happening, with the exception of the fact that IPv6 is not uniform. Therefore, the results are not quite predictable. To minimize this type of problems, increased responses to DNS requests, we need to make sure that port 53 works not just with IPv6, but making sure that it filters DNS responses by their size. And the aspect we should be paying attention to is associated with September 2017, when the key is already in the zone, but the ZSK has not been changed yet. So during those 20 days, there will be an increased number of responses. On October 11, 2017 will be a vulnerable moment, and the point when the key will be revoked, that is in January. Once again, it is hard to say whether these expectations will truly take place. And we will work in close cooperation with the developers who created this plan in the first place. I would like to remind you once again that there are two different approaches using the trust anchor. One would be automatic in correspondence with 5011. The second one is manual adjustment. Of course, it is impossible to follow up on this work all over the world. All we can do is to remind technical experts who will be doing the change of all potential dangers that are contained here. This project and all potential scenarios are the focus of attention for many technical specialists and software developers, obviously. And testing systems are being created for the automatic change of the key, and additional resources will be available by the end of this year, and a special announcement will be made to this effect. Once again, let me remind you that all the materials, all the documents are in public access. You can get them at the ICANN website. All these resources are available for you. You can look at them. And there was a public commenting period, and there have been no significant objections to what is planned, what is proposed, to the order of actions developed by Verizon, developed by representatives of other technical communities. If anyone has any comments, objections, it is still undergoing the process of public commenting, and we strongly urge all those who are interested to respond, to share their concerns if such concerns exist. But let's hope that none of these concerns will be justified. Thank you.